Welcome to the Explainer. So, today we're actually going to completely dismantle a myth. We so often think of a successful life as this perfectly straight, totally predictable timeline. It's like a neat little series of resume milestones, right? You graduate, you land the job, you buy the house, and eventually, well, you retire. But the source material we're looking at today, Greg Valentine's honestly incredible memoir, Time and Becoming, argues something entirely different. It basically asks us to look much, much deeper at the quiet, almost invisible forces that actually shape our path. Okay, let's dive right into this with the core hook of the book. The quote goes, "A life is not something you arrive at. It is something you keep learning how to live." I mean, think about that for a second. It really challenges us to stop seeing life as a predictable destination where we just stop. Instead, it's this messy, continuous act of becoming. Valentine makes the point that we rarely even recognize the truly defining moments of our lives while we're actually inside them. The real meaning isn't found in the big, flashy achievements. It's actually in the quiet, everyday patterns that are just unfolding in the background. And the artwork on the cover of the book captures this feeling of containment brilliantly. It depicts the physical geography of Ramsbottom. That's a town in the north of England. You got these incredibly steep hills, the tight rows of terraced houses, and a quiet graveyard sitting right at the bottom. It all represents this deep sense of containment. Valentine writes about how this valley and his family's incredibly deep roots there, well, they didn't push him forward at first. They steadied him. They anchored him. They taught him exactly how to belong way before he ever learned how to leave. Imagine growing up in the quiet streets of this valley town, constantly watched over by this massive, immovable thing called Holcomb Hill. When you grow up in a valley like that, your horizon is literally blocked in every single direction. You just cannot see past the hills. So when Valentine later developed this intense obsession with cars and moving fast, the text frames it in such a brilliant way. It says it felt less like your standard teenage rebellion and way more like buying an escape pod. The physical landscape itself practically dictated this overwhelming urge to find out what the heck was on the other side. Now, what's really fascinating is how the book contrasts the idea of a house. On the surface, sure, it's just a pile of physical bricks sitting on a street. But Valentine describes his childhood home at 17 Rossthorne Avenue as a literal center of gravity. It wasn't just a building. It was this deeply rooted architecture that organized a massive, chaotic family of 7 children. It just quietly absorbed all their noise, all their laughter, and yeah, their grief too, without ever making a sound. It held all these multiple lives together before they even realized they were entirely separate people. And speaking of multiple lives, consider the story of the young twins and their family lines. Valentine and his twin brother, Alex, were born at exactly midnight, literally right on the absolute edge of a day. And the book uses this midnight line as such a cool symbol. It shows how identity and inheritance, they start out as this perfectly shared beginning. They were basically a 2-man expeditionary force in identical outfits. But as time goes on, those shared lines inevitably branch out into completely different directions. It's proof that while you don't become yourself alone, you do eventually have to separate to actually grow. Which leads us to his first major departure from that Lancashire valley, stepping onto the deck of a ship wearing a military uniform. This is where the memoir really starts exploring the multiplicity of lives lived by one single person. Leaving the valley wasn't him rejecting it at all. It was just a totally necessary step to find the space he needed to build a new identity. Putting on that Royal Marines Band Service uniform was his first real taste of subsuming his own individual self into a much larger, rigid structure. He was essentially trading the natural containment of the valley for the structural containment of the military. And the really crucial point here is the sheer mind-boggling variety of these wildly different experiences, all lived inside just one body. I mean, think about it. You have the Royal Marine swallowing his own suffering in the sweltering heat of a stadium. Then you have the Alpha Connection frontman pushing his brain to literal hallucination during a crazy 108-hour marathon gig. Then jump forward to a Tesco delivery driver bringing food to isolated people during the pandemic, and finally a teacher passing on these quiet habits to a totally new generation. It's absolute proof that identity is never actually fixed. We are constantly rehearsing, reinventing, and heavily improvising based on who is in the room with us. And that brings us to what might be my absolute favorite concept in the whole memoir: scaffolding. What is scaffolding? Well, it's the temporary structures, the jobs, and the routines that hold you safely in place while you go about the super messy business of becoming someone else. Valentine realized that his childhood home, the fast cars, the military uniform, even the successful band, none of those were his ultimate fixed identity. They were simply the scaffolding. They were just the things keeping him upright while he figured out the next iteration of himself. This idea beautifully shifts our whole understanding of where we come from. There is a profound difference between roots and belonging. The book breaks down this amazing philosophical realization that leaving your roots isn't a betrayal, it's not a rejection. Roots anchor you to your beginnings, they give you your original identity. But belonging gives you the permission to move and to become. Moving down to Portsmouth for the Marines was basically a survival tactic. It allowed him to find a space that didn't demand constant loyalty to the old version of himself, so he could actually build rather than just stay stuck in the valley forever. We are always in the process of becoming. There's this really reflective moment where Valentine watches a sunset over the Solent, and the text makes such a profound observation. Time isn't something we lose. It is simply something we pass through. It's like a boat that gets lifted from the water, carried for a brief moment, and then gently set back down. It's a poetic loop, really. The past isn't just gone. It folds back on itself. And the truly essential things, kindness, curiosity, that willingness to just try, they are quietly carried forward right into the next generation. So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a direct question. Look around your own life. What structures are safely holding you while you become someone else? Seriously, think about your job title, your daily routines, the possessions you insure, or even the labels you use to introduce yourself at parties. None of those are the totality of who you are. They're just the invisible scaffolding shaping your own continuous act of becoming. So keep paying attention to them, because life isn't a destination you arrive at, right? It's something you just keep learning how to live. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.